Hey everyone, Kevin here. With the ever increasing number of educators leaving the classroom right now, fewer entering the profession, and even more parents selecting alternative options for their children, I've been seeing a lot of questions being posed about the future of public education as a whole. As always, predicting the future is not really an exact science, but we can definitely make some educated guesses based on the trends we are seeing now. And it isn't really that pretty. This is why we need to start with those current trends in order to see where we are probably going in the years to come. And besides the obvious teacher retention and recruitment crisis, what else are we seeing right now? Well, we're first questioning the efficacy of teacher preparation programs that simply aren't giving aspiring educators a chance to succeed. They end up just placing too much emphasis on theory over practice. Also, a drive to standardize education to such a degree that teachers can't personalize, adapt, or differentiate instruction to meet student needs like they used to. There's little, if any, academic freedom for either the student or the teacher now. An overzealous focus on STEM over subjects over the humanities, arts, and other courses is also present. Learning loss from the pandemic, school closures, and a general disinterest in school, rising levels of student violence, disrespect, and absenteeism. Administrators more interested in their image than running the school and protecting their teachers. Also, a widening political gap that has seeped into most of our decision making and can be seen in everything from test scores to critical race theory and the rights of our LGBTQ plus students. And ultimately, a general loss of support for educators. In polls done during 2022, well below 50% of the country had faith in the school system to meet the needs of their children, and they unfortunately took that frustration out on teachers rather than on the system. So, where does that leave us moving forward? I'm going to be honest and say that I don't really have an answer. It's a bit hard of a question to answer. However, what I will say is that all of these problems have created an atmosphere where policymakers and politicians latch onto fads rather than committing to deep and meaningful reform of a clearly broken system. In the next 10, 20 years or so, I would venture an educated guess that we will continue to see political forces entrench themselves in education to either take advantage of a bad situation to push their agenda or to break up the public school system entirely. I mean, we've already seen this too with school vouchers, private schools, religious education, and charter programs. And I think that inherently none of these options are bad choices and are frankly better than most public schools lately. But the issue is that simply providing more choice in schooling is not a fix to the problem. If it was, we would have seen that improvement take effect already, considering there are so many of these choices out there as it is. I mean, has no one ever heard of the tyranny of choice? It's a logical fallacy. Most importantly, I see more AI led instruction by the 2030s over teachers and direct instruction. One could even argue that this has been part of the plan. I said in a recent video how AI won't replace instructional designers anytime soon, but that isn't the same story for teachers. Adaptive AI programming will eventually show content at a student's grade level based on their performance on computerized assessments, meaning that the further degradation of the teacher's role will continue. Educators have been slowly relegated to facilitators instead of teachers over the last decade, and as AI begins to take over the content delivery part of our jobs, we will no longer have to be subject matter experts. Instead, we'll become some kind of supervisor rather than anything genuinely meaningful. And apps, VR instruction, which my last video discussed, and the like will also become more entrenched in the school system and will ironically keep making school socially distant like it was during the pandemic, even though we've proven that the lack of social interaction and relationship building seriously stunted the social and emotional growth of our students. I really don't think we will ever reach the level of the people in Wally, for instance, but it's a great representation of the kind of learning and instruction that we're headed toward, where a lot of it will come at us through a screen via remote learning. We're already seeing this too due to how few teachers there are now. Schools have been forced to hire remote teachers who educate kids in a classroom via Zoom, which is basically a type of hybrid learning, I guess. And keep in mind that millennials were the last of us to grow up with digital technology, but without it being such a monumentally pervasive part of their lives. Ever since, we've had digital natives who live online and prefer to get their learning through Google and YouTube rather than from an educator. This is a big reason also why there's a diminishing respect for teachers right now, by the way. But anyway, what's the ultimate point here? What will education look like by say 2050? I guess when it comes down to it, my argument is that one, teachers will still exist, but their roles will drastically change. Two, educators will become more virtual and AI led instead of being the front of the classroom. Number three, political forces will continue to vie for control over how kids learn. Number four, schools will become more like learning outlet centers and workout clubs than what they are now. And finally, number five, a shift to a totally student centered learning environment where kids have total control. Like what we're already seeing now and have witnessed fail due to the lack of discipline or repercussions for student misbehavior. I ultimately fear that there will continue to be a trend of immense entitlement on behalf of our kids and their parents, and a continuing disinterest in people becoming teachers due to the low pay, lack of respect, and the changing of their basic job description to something they don't want. Again, these are just basic guesses on my part, but we are at a critical stage for both public education and colleges as well, which I mentioned about a month ago in another video. Education is approaching a reckoning, and so many of us have seen this coming for quite some time now and got out because we didn't like or agree with where education was going. But that's just my 2 cents and where I'll put a bookmark in it for today. If you have any questions, have your own ideas on this topic, or would like to discuss it further, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm always here to help. See you next time.